screen's over there now.
Okay.
Yeah, change, you have to change your head a different direction.
Yeah, you have to turn around now.
Just like Vegas.
It's now 6 PM and the February 15th meeting is please come to order. Would you take roll call, please?
Wayne Clark.
Yes.
Don Niemer.
Here.
Alderman Weigel.
Here.
Alderman Haas.
Here.
Jerry Motter.
Here.
And Karen Gale and Jim Lozenski are not present.
Okay.
Do you have a
We have a
quorum?
quorum, though. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of our previous meeting, December 13th.
Second.
Is there any additions or changes? If not, everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Minutes stand approved. First item, resolution to approve amendment for stormwater easement agreement between the Community Development Authority and 6 Points West 2 LLC for Mandel Group Sofa Loft Development. Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, what this is through the purchase and sale and everything we did for Nona Loss, everything got handled, all the easements, et cetera, and then the owner decided to do a modification at the last minute relative to a stormwater easement that relates to the Nona property, and I'm gonna turn it over to Sean to kind of shed where this is located, et cetera. It was a last minute adjustment, nothing that we wanted to slow down the closing, so.
So in December, the CDA and the council approved the agreement with Mandel Group between the city CDA and Mandel Group for Sona Lofts, the building that you see here. There was previously an easement in place to bring the stormwater up from the north from Nona down through the south into a pond in this area. There's just been a slight modification to where it's going to continue to hug the rail line, the property line along the rail, and the building, and then come down and open up here, and that's just what you'll see on this. This is an update. This was a view of the site at late January, a drone shot of the site, and so the easement that you'll see. So basically, the stormwater from the west it comes under the road here, and then there's a pipe that goes, so this is, you can see the beginning of the Sona Lofts building, foundation of the building but anyway, the stormwater line will come along here, and then you can see where the pond opens up. And so this is just an easement to reflect that situation. It used to be slightly different. It was smaller. The stormwater area was a bit smaller, and so you can see how it was before and what it is now. So.
I move approval.
Second.
Been moved approval, second. Is there any further discussion? If not, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 3, resolution to amend loan notes between the Community Development Authority and First Ring Industrial Redevelopment Enterprise Incorporated relative to Nona and Sona developments. Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, what this is a cleanup activity related to how we structured the Sona deal with Mandel. And when we structured that project, we worked with Ellers to prepare a payment schedule to maintain a positive TIF balance. And with that, then we had to modify the note that we had existing between the CDA and Fire. And this goes back to Nona, when Fire provided a $6.7 million loan to the CDA, and we invested those monies to offer a loan and also prepare the site for Nona. So with that, the payments you can relatively see here off to the side.
Did you didn't attach that in the agenda, did you?
The note?
That.
I did not attach that, no. But it's the note in the payment schedule
that's
is
here.
attached now.
Yeah.
So it's around $2,040,000 would be paid in 2022. And then per the agreement with Nona, there's another 1.5 million that would come in at around, I think, 2030. And then the balance of the payments would start in 2038. It's only in the case if there's increment to pay. So the way we had things structured with Mandel and the Sona loss is if there's excess increment, it flows down to Sona after everything is satisfied on Nona, and then it pays the obligations necessary for Sona, and anything above those obligations can go towards paying down the debt service to Fire. There's a 2.5% interest rate that's on that note, And at the balance here, we'll pay back pretty much all that with some interest to fire. I think it's around $8 million total. Again, the CDA has the discretion to say, no, if the TIF is not performing, we don't have to make those payments and we could be okay. So,
Mr. Clark?
Thank you. Patrick, with the various people in City Hall who keep their eyes on these financial things, including yourself, does anyone have a concern with this?
I've not heard of any. Jason, do you have any? I think this is what we've talked about in the way we structured the deal, so.
Yeah, this is right in line with what we worked with Ellers. So.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Been moved in second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 4, resolution to approve a site assessment grant to Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation on 6325 West National Avenue, former Castech. Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, for the site assessment grant through the state of Wisconsin, city has to have access to the site and then enter into, be the agent for the grant for a prospective business. We have a prospective business that's interested in buying the site. They have it under contract. And we're willing to work out an agreement that would allow us with the owner to get access. Her consultant would go do the environmental investigation, or theirs, and then they would proceed to closing. You can get up to $150,000 from the state to perform phase 1 and phase 2. Now, why are these needed? Well, anybody buying an older industrial property or automobile-oriented property, you should probably look at getting a phase 1 or phase 2. Our business, our property file indicates that there's probably tanks on the site. There's no record of them being removed. They might have been, but there's always what if that's there and what if they've leaked, etc. There are some lifts inside of the building yet, the inside automotive hydraulic lifts. So this is the idea to help gain investment into this, and we'll talk about the prospect in closed session, but what this is granting staff here the authority to apply in partnership with our city attorney, making sure everything is in line, and that we seek this grant from the state of Wisconsin. We had a call today with the state. They've already sent us the application, but pretty much the prospect does all the paperwork. We're just a processing agent for this process.
Mr. Clark, go ahead.
This was previously owned, or maybe still is owned, by Motor Castings or the Dalton Group. Who owns it today?
It is a private individual that owns it. He bought it from Motor Castings as is, and then I don't know the individual's name offhand, but he's just marketing it as a private individual. I think you met with them early
Yeah,
on.
just a speculative buyer that sees value in properties and was just kind of been sitting on it and waiting for a good buyer, or waiting for a buyer that'll pay a decent amount of money.
Per the buyer's consultant, it looks like most of the items that were relative to the environmental date back to an automotive use at the site. It was a Dodge dealer
During Dodge, yeah.
during Dodge, and
that
they're no
was their
longer in business.
Repair garage on that side. The showroom was on Greenfield Avenue side.
So,
Is that right?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Alderman.
a couple questions for Patrick. So this is just for assessment, not that 150 would go far on any cleanup.
the phase 1, phase 2 is estimated around 25,000. You can actually do a tank removal with a SAG grant.
With this?
Yeah, if we get
Okay.
the right amount of funding.
Okay.
The owner has to provide a 20%, or
Oh,
there's a
okay.
20% match.
So I was gonna say, we wouldn't go forward with this regardless of the potential use. I mean, either way, this is gonna have to be done on the property for,
It's a barrier to somebody
Yeah.
buying it and getting financing on the site. Now, like this gentleman bought it as is,
yeah,
and
so it's
I
on.
bought it
it's-
for
it's-
cash.
Right, it's on him.
But it's one of those things that, there's always these people that buy properties and then learn about the environmental issues later. I'm not saying that's in this case. Maybe it's all been handled and managed, but I think this is, a typical
Yeah.
situation that if you want to get financing to buy the site, you're going to have a phase 1 that clears a bank approval. So this is helping getting that done. Whether it's this prospect or another, somebody's got to do the work.
And just as a reminder, phase 1 is a search of records.
It's search of records, just walking the site, seeing if there's like the pipes coming out of the ground, disturbances, things like that.
And phase 2
contacting previous owners.
And phase 2 would be drilling holes in the ground.
poke-
soil
you would-
samples.
possibly some soil samples and maybe bringing a magnet over the site to see if there's anything, or, x-ray the soil to see if there's a tank down there. I mean, sometimes tanks are closed in place, so the tank is left and filled with sand. Sometimes tanks are closed, but they have leaked, and they just haven't done any. So in this project, there's no plans to, I don't think, disturb the ground, which is good. But in order to secure your future, you don't want something, this is leaked onto the neighbor's property. And you want to make sure those things are addressed.
Thank you.
Kevin, did you have a question? Oh, excuse me, Mr. Niemeyer.
Thank you. So the prospective buyer this grant would go to,
Correct. To complete the phase 1 and phase 2.
the owner is marketing this property for sale?
Correct.
Okay, so,
In fact, we have another prospect that's also looked at the site for kind of an entertainment type of use as well, and they were in due diligence. I'm assuming this would have come up if wherever they're at in their due diligence, so.
so just so the owner knows that what's going on, because
Well, we'll have to,
potentially on the hook if they find a lot of
Yeah.
fun stuff there.
well, this is a 3-party thing where we have to be part of the site assessment grant process here with the state, and then we have to work with the owner to get all the paperwork and processing and reimbursements and things like that. So we actually just, within the last year or two, we did one of these for the hotel development. They applied for a site assessment grant, and I think we came to the city or the CD and got that approval to be the agent for that.
I just know that the sewage district owners are very reluctant for us to come on their property and do soil borings. Once that's unknown, becomes a disposable item, and they're on the hook to fix it, so.
If this falls apart, at least we went to the CDA and got our authority to be able to submit a grant application. If they don't want to participate, that's their decision.
We're trying to make the deal happen.
We're trying to facilitate
Trying
that.
to,
yeah.
I mean, not force the deal, obviously, but we
Right.
want to, yeah. Just my concern, the owner is aware of this, and,
Yes.
yeah. And the owner doesn't want to be, I guess the owner's not putting up you said it's 20% match?
Right. It would be the prospect.
Yeah, but that's gonna come off the sale price then, I imagine, plus
Right.
whatever they find.
Well, whatever.
Whatever they negotiate, yes.
this works.
It's gonna be, could be a negative value.
So
Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
to what extent is the city, what exposure does the city have?
None, because we just have to be the agent to the state. If we don't file the records or something with them, then the prospect doesn't get the money to pay for the environmental report,
And
so.
unless this environmental report is completed, the owner has no leverage to get anything to sell it.
Unless there's somebody that comes along with cash
Cash,
and
yeah,
doesn't care about the risk.
yeah.
Would we be concerned?
I mean, I'm concerned when somebody doesn't want to do we've had this discussion on another site where the owner says, well, I want you to sign a non-disclosure in order to get access to the site. And this owner is willing to work with this prospect so far, so.
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved for approval. Any further discussion? If not, everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item number 5, discuss relative to redevelopment of 6771 West National Avenue. Patrick?
I should turn this one over to Sean.
Is that the cabaret? Or am I the wrong place?
Wrong place.
Car wash.
Through car wash.
Oh,
place.
okay. What am I thinking? Oh, I was thinking of the spot, but that's,
Get that out of your
because
mind.
I gotta go and check that out again.
66.
That's later on the agenda.
That's later on the agenda.
They're closed.
6771 is the former Kerning Schrecker Manufacturing Building, which the Community Development Authority owns. We had been in a letter of intent with Whitico Development Group out of the Racine Kenosha area, and the project they had as they've gone into more detail on the project, have just discovered that it's too big of a project for them to be able to go to the bank and get financing for. Like they just, it's just too big for them. It started out as like an $11 million project, and a kind of 15, and now it's, as they've done more due diligence in the property, they think it's about a $21 million project. So as, you know, we got that email and then, you know, spoke to them and, you know, we sort of ended on very good terms. In fact, they, you know, they love the building and all those things. But we decided to reach back out to Baum Revision, who we did have a letter of intent with pre-COVID. And they had done a lot of work on the building, had an architect. They'd spent money. They'd helped get us eligibility for the state national register. So they'd hired a historic consultant. They've done, and then they've done a lot of work within the business community here, reaching out to try to find leads for tenants to go into the building. They had those big meetings set up literally when COVID was starting, and obviously everything just stopped. And they let us know at that time, early COVID time, of like, hey, you know, they were worried about all their existing assets and how they were going to be impacted, and that they just kind of let us know like they couldn't put, you know, more money into this project at that time. So that's when we had, and then we had sort of marketed it, and Whittico came to the table, and so they did their due diligence and decided it's too big. Baum is very interested and very excited to jump back into it. They think they could handle it. They're right now looking into just, hey, you know, why is there this difference in construction costs? So they're trying to get their arms wrapped around that. And they are, you know, just making calls to get a feel for if, you know, they can find any big tenants or anything like that. You know, they have different sort of concepts that they'd like to look at for the building and things like that. But they're going to come to us with a term sheet, and that we would bring it, you know, to this group and see what it looks like. But, you know, one of their concerns is obviously the size of the building and the historic tax credits and things like that. It's going to take 2 years from construction start, really, from closing until really getting the building open, and that's a hard period of time to ask a tenant to commit, you know, 2 years ahead of time. So there is going to likely, what they were talking about was, you know, maybe some aspect of an agreement to, you know, to help guarantee rents or things like that and then it gets peeled off as tenants come in and things like that. They have not submitted the term sheet. We don't know what it's going to look like, but that was just the early discussion of how do we just get this building restored and just get it done. They have the financial wherewithal to get this to a bank, and the team to get this done. As you know, one of you visited the Garber feed mill, they've done that, and this project would sort of be modeled along those lines. They've done major projects in Minneapolis, Chicago. So it's a good group, it's a good fit for the building, but we would come back with the details, hopefully, at the next meeting.
So we'll probably have another follow-up call with them this week just to see where we're at on those terms. If that doesn't materialize, we have some other options in mind. We did get another couple inquiries. So, I mean, there's interest out there, but we like this developer. They're proven, and I'm nationally, so we hope to hopefully get this going here this year, so.
The other people that are interested is along the same lines?
It's
or
gonna
is
be
it
the
totally
same-
different?
Same uses, incubator,
All right, I'm
event
just curious.
space, wedding. Yeah, there's interest. It's just that once they get into the numbers and we start seeing how this is gonna cash flow, it's the cash flow that's the issue, and how we materialize that and model it. It's gonna be some creativity. If it was simple, it'd be done right now, right? This one's gonna take a little creativity.
That's the way it is for everything that comes before us.
Yes.
If it was
If they
simple,
didn't need
it'd
us,
be done by now.
they'd be
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Alderman Weigel.
I think the cool factor on this building is the windows. And I think there's been some conversations about how important that is to the aesthetic of it. I understand that's gonna be a part of the
Major
creative,
expense?
yeah, part of the problem with it. As an example, we own Sprocket and Bayview reused a building that had a lot of glass. They put vertical columns in some places to eliminate the glass. Now, looking at this picture here, I'm wondering if it would be acceptable if, say, the bottom row of windows was infilled with something else. If that helps the thing, I'm just wondering what the other authoritarians feel about the idea. And obviously, we're not the plan commission or staff or you know,
It's really gonna come down to the historical tax credits.
what that's gonna require.
Right.
Okay, okay.
Because that's gonna bring a lot of equity, as you can see here.
No.
the 5 million in state and federal historical tax credits.
But that's gonna eat, the windows are gonna eat up all that. I would think, or a good portion of it.
But if you don't do them to their liking, you don't get the money.
I understand that, but
Right.
is their liking gonna mean 100%? Or would they be happy with 65%?
It's a negotiation of.
Okay, I didn't know how that worked, but and like I said, I'm just trying to get a feeler here for the room about what people think that could look like if the bottom row there was filled in.
Sure.
Still has
Ironically-
that cool light up look at night.
Ironically, the lady I think that helped us through this process, we just recently called on another project, and she no longer works at the state, but we found out that Carver was contracting with her, I think, to do the historical on this
Oh, do it.
building, so.
She had walked through, Jen from the Devil from the state had walked through this with Garver, and then I think they ended up the firm that they were working with ended up hiring her.
Oh.
That was the risk we took when we went the historical
Yes.
route on this,
Yeah.
is we might be pigeonholed into,
Right.
It's been about, what, 4 or 5 years since many of us toured that building and kicked up the pigeons and used flashlights to make our way through. This is getting kind of old, and I realize COVID got in the way, and we have to give it more time, but one of these days, I'm gonna suggest we pull out a bulldozer.
I would
We're not gonna get
expect,
the historic tax
That
credits.
was,
Not with a bulldozer.
And
We're
we have
not
to
there.
pay for
We're
the
not
phase
there
one and
yet, but
phase.
we have to keep that
Pay
in
for the
mind.
phase one and the phase two.
we did that
Oh, we
already.
did that already, good, okay.
Those are done.
What's next?
Yeah,
All right,
just
we'll
on,
go to
quickly
item
on, or Mr. Chair, on the subject of windows, and Marty, you recall that and you guys had brought forward some sort of energy efficient windows also as a possibility.
Well, probably a
Even-
requirement.
well, that's a requirement whatsoever, you
We
know.
need to, yeah.
So, but windows would be, like you
I was
said,
thinking, yeah, that is something short of, taking out a row, like you were
Yeah.
saying.
that would
Marty.
eat $5 million up like nothing on that building.
Yes.
All right, we'll go to item number 6, discussion on Maker's Row, 1 and 2 within the market redevelopment. Patrick?
We're gonna comment on that in closed session, but just we have been contacted by Valentine Coffee, which is the proposed tenant for the corner of 65th and National, so we're working on that. We have a performer which we'll show you here in closed session, and we're in negotiations with Bob. It would be, or Mandel, for this building as well as phase 2, so 2 buildings here that will get built. It's around 30,000 square feet, and we'll show you that here in closed session, so.
All right, we're gonna go to item number 7. Any questions regard to item number 6 here? If not, we'll go to item number 7, discussion relative proposed development on 81st Street and National.
This is just an update. We've met with this developer. This is probably within the last few weeks here for the 4th time on a possible condo development on 81st and National. I mean, he's got a new rendering of the property, which looks really cool. It's around 40 units with some ground or townhome style condos on the first level with garages on the back. We'll show you, I think that's the next slide, the floor plan of that. And then it'll have some larger units in here as well as some micro units, so it's a blend. The micro units are on $175,000 and up. When I say micro, they have Murphy beds. So it's a newer kind of concept in my mind, but, and then the bigger units, of course, 285 to 320. We looked at condos recently sold within the last 6 months, which mainly relate to the 6 Points East condo building, and they have sold in the 285 range, the top units there. So there is a market, and we've been hearing the word condo more and more in our office. People looking for condos, whether it's a ranch-style condo or something like this, I don't know, but in fact, I was at dinner last night when the owner of the restaurant said, we had people in here the other day saying they're willing to put money down on a condo if there was one in this neighborhood. So, I mean, there's people looking around. I haven't heard in the last couple of years the word condo other than this project. And also, I just bring it up here as we approach this and look at this. We've heard some of the underwriting conditions have changed for condos, and Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac, when most loans or mortgages go that are sold in that market, are asking for the whole, you can say this is Miami and Waukesha, the assessments, what's supposed to be fixed. I mean, this is new development, but it's something that they're gonna want in as part of your mortgage. because it's caused some issue in the market, as we've seen. And anybody buying a condo are gonna have to probably attest to what those assessments are annually to their mortgage holder, so that they can see the possible risk. But, like I said, we've met with this developer, they've submitted us a one-page pro forma at this point. It's around a $15 million project. They do have an accepted offer on the vacant grass lot that's comprised of this area. It's the former Happy Hobby. They have submitted an offer on the bank building, but I understand there might be multiple offers on that property, so we'll see how that goes. The assessment projected or value on this property is around $10 million, based on how the units will sell, et cetera. They are looking for a developer-funded TIF, which, they've asked for a high amount. It just doesn't pencil out. And I understand they're starting to work with Baker Tilly to help with that situation, figure out how to get this into a better flow. Right now, we're interested. I think as a community, that would be a nice fit. It looks nice. And, this, as you're aware, is a developer that is associated with this concept of a private train system. But this is a standalone project. This is not conditioning on any type of rail system. So we'll continue to negotiate and talk with this developer, and hopefully this materializes, but I think it's a nice looking project. I think here's the floor plan. I snapped one of the images of inside. They sent us a whole file of different units and their layouts and their images inside. They called it, what was the term? Swedish, European, something, modern. There was a term they used in our meeting that was something I've not heard before, but
Just IKEA?
not IKEA, but like IKEA, yeah. Light IKEA, maybe. Hopefully it gets put together quicker than an IKEA item, but
Are those the only two lots in this, or does it include the old?
they have shown plans that do show the former service station or automotive property that's owned, I think, by an individual named Mel Adams. They would have to represent that they have that under control. They want to go to Plan Commission, but the issue here is for our Plan Commission, you have to have the owner sign off saying it's fine to go to Plan Commission, or represent that you're at least buying the property or have an accepted offer. If they come to Plan Commission, it's just a concept, and the owners can go, I don't want that. So, I mean, it's best to wait till you can at least represent you have control of some sort.
Would a developer come to Plan Commission first, because then he can go back to the bank and say West Dallas has already approved it?
It's not the bank that's necessarily the issue here, is he's got to have the land.
Well, I understand
So
that,
we
I
have-
understand that.
yeah.
I understand we don't want to waste the Plan Commission's time with a project that the property owner wants nothing to do with.
Right.
I understand that, but I'm just wondering from the developer side, why he would want to go through the hassle of putting the presentation together.
I mean, it could be that too. I mean, it would be helpful to get through Plan Commission and then get all your approvals, but, it's the issue if we approve it this way, and access and ingress and stormwaters and all those things, and you don't have the land.
Right.
It changes everything. So it's best to wait. I think the term is wait for it to be soup. Yeah.
Wait for it to be soup.
Yeah, I
Is
think
it
that's-
soup yet? It's not
Is
soup
it?
yet.
Yeah, that's what we usually want to wait for on a project like this.
Mm-hmm.
But we share it now because we've shared different variations, images of this project previously to the CDA, and I think this would be a nice fit
This is
within
the
that
nicest
corridor. So, and if the rail system does come, I mean, it's thought-provoking,
Yeah.
in terms of transportation-oriented development, and I see the National League of Cities today posted a webinar about trying to attract more rail systems to your community, or starting one. So, here's
All
another
right.
image of it.
Any further questions? If not, we'll go to item number 8, discussion regarding the redevelopment at 65th and Greenfield Avenue. Patrick?
Mr. Chairman, I think we had this in closed session too, right? Yeah. Just an open here that we have acquired the Spotlight Lounge. The city owns it. The Public Works is working to remove the exterior sign. We'll put that in the storage for right now. Maybe that cabinet sign can be reused, but that way we just don't have that image up there. And,
Yeah.
yeah,
The for sale sign is still on the building.
we'll
It
have
was-
that
It was
removed too.
today. Does that go back to the real estate agent, or do we,
Oh,
I would think so, right?
Yeah.
I mean, was it a realtor, or was it, direct
I
sale.
thought it was privately.
I think it was privately
Yeah.
sold, yeah.
So we can, we'll have that removed as well. But I don't mind it being there if they call us with a good project
Well,
or
whose number's
something.
on it?
Yeah, we'll have to look at that. That's a
Yeah.
good point. But I'd like to talk a little bit further about that in closed session. You want to talk about this one?
Yeah, we met with, as you recall, the developer for the 70th Street corridors, Cobalt Group, the Alice Yards project. Obviously, this is a view of the west side of the street. Things are going very well over there. The event space is doing great. Their office leasing over there is doing pretty well. But they've got, over half. They've got the 1205 building and then is it 1135? 1205 is basically fully leased out. In 1135, they still have some space left to lease, but they put a lot of money into refreshing that outdated office space, and they've had some success getting tenants in. They've obviously begun the hotel. It's on schedule. It's been a pretty friendly winter construction-wise, and so they've been able to take advantage of that, and so things are going really well that way. And so we had a discussion with them about the next phases of the development. The residential within the McKinley Park area on the west side there, and then also the office space on the east side. And they represented obviously the challenges that everybody's seen in the office market, throughout the country. Given the people working from home and things like that. So they're thinking about regrouping on that and trying to think of creative ways to address that situation. Could they add residential over there, or other types of uses? So they're kind of just wanting to rethink it, given the market changes throughout the area and the country really. So that was the basics on this.
So I mean, his focus is, of course, adjacent to the hotel, and they did apply for the state crime lab, and that was not successful. So, so if they propose residential or some sort of other vision, the development of the McKinley area, of course, then slows down a little because you can only do so much, residential at a time. But it's an ongoing process. We'll have to evolve and reassess and figure out where the project's at and how we can facilitate, additional projects there. I was at a conference last week and I saw my counterpart from M7, I said, when you're out recruiting, don't forget about South 70th Street. We have that nice site for a corporate headquarters of some sort, so.
So Patrick, where is that state crime lab going? Has that been announced?
I have not heard where it's going, but a lot of the professionals in the Milwaukee area are thinking it's going by the medical college.
Yeah.
Across from Parks.
All right.
I think the Milwaukee County Mental Health Complex
Yeah.
was for sale in that area.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Patrick, so this is the latest back of the napkin sketch. Obviously, it's not, it's a long way from being done.
One of the latest ones.
One of the
yeah.
latest. And the developer is certainly aware of this West Washington possible extension that DOT is currently going through. And also the 70th Street Bridge is going to be rebuilt this coming summer.
Yeah,
Is it a full year,
I understand that.
like 12 months year?
Yeah,
Yeah, so the 70th Street Bridge is going to be
correct,
completely closed to all vehicle traffic for 12 months.
correct. I understand. Is that next year?
I mean,
2023.
it's 2023, okay.
Maybe I can make my projects confused, but,
I thought the bridge was 22, but
okay.
Yeah, I thought it was 22 also, but, well, they would have started, or be,
I know we were talking about another project, and that one I thought was this year, got pushed back to next year, so,
that's been happening a lot.
yeah.
Because that would impact construction, obviously, and certainly tenancy also, so. but-
Yeah, the sooner the better. on
Yes,
that. Get it
yeah.
done with.
Yeah, and we're working on the bike connection.
Yeah, that's the Dawes thing on
Yeah,
72nd Street,
right.
yeah. I've
Well-
been keeping an eye on it.
With engineering. I know that's not in the city, but we're trying to make that connection to help this project and the area there connect a little bit more effectively, so.
All right, then we'll go to.
Item
any further
10.
Discussion, we'll go to item number 10. Discussion regarding South 96th Street and West Greenfield Avenue.
This is the St. Aloysius Church area, 92nd Greenfield. It's owned by Cardinal Capital. We have been in conversations with them. I think we're on the second pro forma from that developer. They are a very busy company. They're closing some big project or refinancing some big project in Middleton. And then they're closing on a deal that's related to Pius, some apartment complex in that area. And then he said he's going to be in the talk with us. In the meantime, we did get an inquiry about the school being used as a charter school, ironically. We said that probably would not, when you're trying to do a TIF and having somebody in there, and it would be complicate things, because even though they say it's for 2 years, and it'll end up being 4 years, and then it slows the whole timeline down. So when we get this structured, it would be best not to have that school occupied. So the developer made that reference to that group, and that conversation has stopped. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that there was a group looking to use the school. They've been looking around the whole West Dallas area. I think it's called Athlos Leadership Academy. Is that the name of them? Yeah.
It's a private for-profit.
Private for-profit charter school, and they want to have 700 students by this fall. So it's a growing entity, so.
Will be available.
So we have a list, Mr. Chairman, item 11.
Yes.
Repair it.
Concentrate relative to report on redevelopment initiatives. Go ahead, Patrick.
Right. I think one of the big things on here, do we have slides for each one of these, or just
A
conversation?
few of them.
Okay. The Highway 100 corridor, you can do this one.
Bulldog Ale House, they had sort of walked from the developer that had purchased the site had sort of walked from the concept initially due to some, I think there were fire code issues that were
We have since
requiring a
fixed.
sprinkler system, which has since been changed. That brought Bulldog Ale House back to the table, and they are going full bore on it now, and they expect to be open early summer. We put it up here because we get a lot of questions on it, and so it's just good to be able to
It's the
provide.
former Perkins.
I think people were mailed coupons and things like that, and
For Bulldog?
so everybody kind of calls and asks, "Hey, what's going?" Yeah, so because they had been planning to be open, but at this point, but it's great to see them come back and planning to be open by early summer.
Mr. Niemer.
Any plans for like streetscaping along Highway 100 now that the construction is complete from the city?
We do not have any plans for that, but would we like that? Yes.
I know we
I
did
mean-
the big study that, we got all the citizen input, we had folks in here. Is there an action plan from that, or?
Not on the streetscaping of Highway 100, because they just resurfaced it and did some connections, but that is something that's worth a discussion.
You're exactly right. We have trouble keeping the streetlights on. That strings go out occasionally. There are lots of faults in there. It's an old system even, and DPW does what they can, but there are often outages.
I know
The
there
old
was,
series circuit.
we had a citizen input for Highway 100, what we're gonna do with it. There was a lot of great ideas. But there's no action plan from that, or what's the next step with that?
Is the materialize, you probably do an actual drawing plan and look at costs and things like that, but that's going to be a partnership with the DOT. I think sometimes with the DOT, we might be on a different page. Our goal would be to shrink it and make it more easier to connect. They want, in the past years, to widen it, which would take up a lot of taxable value, so it's something that we have to work on. Could we incorporate some of those theories into other private development along the corridor? That is true.
Yeah, we talked at least the meeting that I attended, we talked about just beautifying boulevards, utilizing some different street signage, make it more of a showcase for West Dallas versus a road that gets you from one side of the county to the other.
We have been putting in some, entrance features, designs into the capital improvement program for the city, of course, but with limited budgets and things like that, that's doesn't get ranked as high as some other community needs that we have. So we've been putting some of those theories to work in terms of, here's something we could do at north entrance, south entrance, along the corridor. Because that is one of the goals, is to address the northern entrance into the city.
It just seems like a very clear, you get into West Allis, things change. It looks more, I don't know, commuter oriented versus
I appreciate-
community oriented.
Appreciate your comments on that, and that's something we'll again revisit as staff at our meetings with our colleagues with the planning and see what we can come up with.
Thank you.
And engineering, we gotta have engineering at the table because of the relationship with DOT.
Well, I think that's tied a lot to the use that we see out there, like the Quad Graphics building and the Colders building, and, you know, those kinds of uses don't lend themselves to, you know, it's not necessarily pedestrian friendly, but certainly it feels more commuterish when you're right, until you get past Greenfield Avenue, it's, you know.
But you bring up valid points, so.
Thanks.
You got it.
National Avenue corridor, just, we don't have a ton of info on this. This is the 6125 West National Ave. You see the old West Allis State Bank building. The gentleman bought, that's
That's this one
purchased
right
it,
here.
Kervin Zerby, is in there, and has been working on restoring the building, and, you know, has intent of making it like a bourbon bar restaurant. So it's an exciting prospect to have. He's looking at the possibility of rooftop dining as well, and which would be awesome. You know, obviously that triggers all sorts of code things that everything you could possibly imagine, right? But it's great to see someone with that kind of vision looking to restore a really cool building and use it in a nice way for the neighborhood and for West Allis. And then, yeah, just some, you know, exciting stuff that have been announced on National Ave 2, Heaven's Table Barbecue. It's one of the users looking to go into Maker's Row, as well as, you know, empanadas and some other great uses like Valentine's. So.
The motor casting site, the asbestos abatement is complete. They are ready to bite at the bit of demolition. They have to complete one local requirement yet of addressing
Mammals?
mammals, and that's been taking a few weeks yet. And
What
I'm not
mammals?
quite certain. They have a straight tail. They have to work on that issue yet for a little bit, so
Not an endangered
that project, that issue has not dissipated yet. So it seems like it might be more exterior than it is internal, so it's a discussion I have to have with the health department. This is just like a few minutes ago, the owner mentioned that, yeah, we're ready to go, but we haven't passed that test yet. So I don't know where they're coming from, but we'll have to see. The traffic is still there before they can tear that building down, so. There continues to be interest as well in that area. We're seeing a few developers inquire what could happen there, so just wanted to share. I don't have anything of more substance than that.
That's it. Any further questions regarding these items? Then we'll go into closed session. For agendas and items 3 to 10, the committee may conceive in closed session pertinent to provisions section 19.85/1/E for the state statutes for the purpose of delivering
I'll be right back.
and investing
I vote
public
yes.
funds whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. This committee can convene an open session after completion of a closed session to consider the balance of its agenda. Can we have a motion to go in closed session?
Move to go in closed session.
Second,
All in favor? What?
yes.
You gotta take roll call. It's gotta be a oral roll call on it.
Marty Weigel,
Yes.
Wayne Clark,
Yes.
Don Nieber,
Yes.
Jerry Motter.
Yes. Call the house.
That's enough.
We're good.
Carries.
Okay. We are now in closed session.